I was reborn and went back to the exact day I divorced my wife, Liu Ruyan. In my past life, she signed the papers with utter indifference. The way she looked at me was like she was looking at a piece of irrelevant trash. But this time, when I pushed the divorce agreement in front of her, her eyes turned red, and she tore the agreement to shreds. I pushed the printed divorce agreement toward Liu Ruyan. Sign it. In my past life, it happened right here. That woman hadn't even spared me a second glance before scribbling her signature and then having her assistant escort me out like a piece of garbage. And I, Gu Yuan, a useless man who married into the Liu family. That was the label the entire upper class of Yun City put on me. And the one who gave me that label was the very wife in front of me, Liu Ruyan. She was wearing a well-tailored white suit, with her long hair pinned up high, revealing her slender, swan-like neck. There wasn't a single trace of expression on her breathtakingly beautiful face, and the coldness piercing through her eyes could freeze the remaining air. I used to think that as long as I worked hard, I could warm this block of ice, but 3 years of marriage brought nothing but endless disregard and humiliation. She looked down on me. She loathed me from the bottom of her heart. The whole world knew it, but I didn't find out until just before I died. It turned out she always had a white moonlight first love in her heart, and I was nothing more than a shield she used to deflect her family's arranged marriage. Trying this life over again, I'm tired and weary. I just want to break free from all of this as soon as possible, and then find a place with beautiful mountains and clear waters to brew some wine, work out, and live the peaceful, laid-back life of my dreams. I quietly watched her, waiting for her to do what she did in the past life, swiftly sign her name. However, 1 second, 2 seconds, 10 seconds passed. Liu Ruyan didn't move. Her eyes, which were usually as unbothered as an ancient well, were currently staring dead at me, swirling with emotions I couldn't understand. Shock, agony, and a hint of panic. I frowned. Did I see it wrong? Liu Ruyan, look closely. It's a divorce agreement, I reminded her, even tapping my knuckles against the desktop. You're free. You can go find your white moonlight now. White moonlight, she muttered to herself, her face instantly draining of all color. The next second, she made a move that left me dumbfounded. She suddenly stood up, leaning forward with both hands pressed against the desk, those beautiful eyes quickly filled with tears. I won't sign. Her voice trembled with a hint of hoarseness, as if squeezed from the depths of her throat. I froze. The script was wrong. In our past life, she couldn't wait for me to get the hell out. What did you say? I doubted my own hearing. I said, I won't sign, Liu Ruyan repeated, her voice growing louder. She reached out, grabbed the divorce agreement, and tore the stark black and white papers to shreds right before my eyes. As if that wasn't enough to vent her anger, she grabbed the fragments, viciously crumpled them into a ball, and threw them into the trash can. After doing all this, her chest heaved violently. Her rims were terrifyingly red, and tears welled up in her eyes, yet she stubbornly refused to let them fall. The way she looked wasn't like an Ice Queen CEO at all. She looked like a little girl who had her candy stolen. Gu Yuan, what do you mean by this? She questioned me, her voice carrying a sob. Why do you want to divorce me? I was completely baffled by this sudden turn of events. What was going on? Did my rebirth trigger a butterfly effect? Or could it be that the Liu Ruyan in front of me was just like me? An absurd thought popped up. I asked tentatively, Do you remember too? Liu Ruyan's body stiffened violently. Her Tong Kong pupils suddenly contracted. She looked at me in disbelief, her lips trembling slightly, but she couldn't say a single word. Looking at her reaction, my heart jolted fiercely. She was reborn too. The air seemed to solidify. The two of us just stared at each other, both of our eyes filled with crashing waves of shock. So, the painful memories didn't belong to me alone. The raging fire that took my life, that heart-wrenching, burning pain. Did she experience it too? Liu Ruyan finally found her voice. "You're back?" I nodded, my emotions complicated to the extreme. What kind of joke was God playing on me? Letting me be reborn, yet also sending back this very woman I wanted to escape from the most. Receiving my confirmation, Liu Ruyan seemed to have all her strength drained away. Her body swayed, and she sank back into her chair. She lowered her head. I couldn't see her expression. I could only see her hands tightly gripping the hem of her suit, her knuckles turning white from the exertion. The office fell into a dead silence. I didn't know what to say. The resentment from the past life was still stuck in my chest, but seeing her look so fragile right now, that hatred felt blocked by something, unable to find an outlet. After a long while, she finally raised her head. The tears in her eyes had dried, leaving behind only a profound, indistinguishable sadness and regret. "I'm sorry." She looked at me, saying it word by word. I was stunned. Liu Ruyan, that high and mighty, never-bowing Ice Queen CEO, was actually apologizing to me. This felt even more unbelievable to me than the fact that she had been reborn. "I'm sorry?" I twitched the corner of my mouth, letting out a cold laugh. "President Liu, what do you have to be sorry to me for? Didn't you always look down on me as a freeloading parasite? Now I am backing out on my own accord to fulfill your wishes with your white moonlight. You should be happy." "There is no white moonlight," she interrupted me eagerly, her voice changing pitch. "There was never any white moonlight." "Never?" It felt as if I had just heard the biggest joke in the world. "Liu Ruyan, we are both people who have died once already. Are you still going to put on an act in front of me? Do you dare to say that Lin Yuang isn't in your heart?" Lin Yuang, her childhood sweetheart, her dear older brother, and the final straw that broke me in my past life. I would never forget when I was being ridiculed by the entire city. Liu Ruyan was smiling and chatting merrily with Lin Yuang in front of the media. At the mention of the name Lin Yuang, Liu Ruyan's face turned a few shades paler. Her lips twitched slightly, seemingly wanting to explain something, but in the end it only turned into a bitter smile. "Gu Yuan, in the past life it was my fault." Her voice dropped low, carrying a hint of pleading. "Give me another chance, okay? Let's not get divorced. Let's live a good life together." Live a good life? I looked at her, finding it both absurd and laughable. Where was this attitude before? Only after a person dies do you know how to regret? "Liu Ruyan, do you think that's possible?" I stood up, looking down at her. "I have had enough of your coldness. Had enough of the rolling eyes from your Liu family, and had more than enough of living in your shadow. In this life, I only want to live for myself." After saying that, I stopped looking at her, turned around, and walked away. "Gu Yuan!" she cried out agonizingly behind me. My footsteps paused, but I didn't turn back. "Don't go! I beg you!" Her voice carried a heavy sob, filled with despair and humility. My heart jolted. That familiar feeling of my emotions being swayed by her surged up again. No. I dug my nails firmly into my palms, using the pain to keep myself awake. "Gu Yuan, don't be a fool again. Have you forgotten how you died in your past life? This woman is poison. You cannot touch her." I took a deep breath, and without looking back, I pulled open the office door and strode out. Outside the door, Liu Ruyan's chief secretary, Assistant Chen, was holding a cup of coffee. Seeing me come out, a flash of disdain crossed her eyes before she quickly put on a professional fake smile. "Mr. Gu." I didn't bother to acknowledge her and walked straight toward the elevator. Behind me, the office door was suddenly flung open. "Gu Yuan, stop right there." It was Liu Ruyan's voice. I didn't stop and pressed the down button for the elevator. Just as the elevator doors were about to close, a foot wearing a white high heel suddenly jammed its way in. Sensing the obstruction, the elevator doors slowly opened again. Liu Ruyan stood outside the doors, panting for breath. Her hair was messy, her makeup was ruined, and her eyes were red and swollen. Where was the slightest resemblance to the Ice Queen female CEO? She stepped into the elevator, ignoring the astonished looks of the other employees around us, and grabbed my wrist. Her hand was very cold and still trembling slightly. "Come back with me." She looked at me, her eyes filled with stubborn pleading. I shook off her hand, my voice icy. "Liu Ruyan, don't force me to make an ugly scene with you here." My words made her body stiffen, and a hurt expression flashed across her eyes. The air in the elevator almost froze into ice. The surrounding employees didn't even dare to breathe heavily, covertly sizing us out from the corners of their eyes. They must be thinking, how did this live-in loser upset President Liu again? Ding. The elevator reached the first floor. I walked out first, and Liu Ruyan followed closely behind. "Gu Yuan, where are you going?" "Going home to pack my things." I deliberately emphasized the word home with biting sarcasm. That so-called home was nothing more than a room converted from a servant's quarters in the Liu family villa. Liu Ruyan's footsteps halted. She looked at my departing back, her lips trembling, but in the end, she couldn't say any words to make me stay. Perhaps she also knew that the damage from the past life couldn't be erased by a simple, "I'm sorry." I returned to the Liu family villa. Though it was called a villa, it actually had nothing to do with me. Where I lived was an independent side wing next to the main building, which used to be for senior servants. The room wasn't big, but it had everything. For the past 3 years, I spent most of my time here. The Liu family servants always looked at me with undisguised contempt. In their eyes, my status as a matrilocal husband wasn't even equal to the Liu family's pet, General, an Alaskan Malamute. I briefly packed up my things. Honestly, there wasn't much to pack. A few changes of clothes, an old phone I used for years, and a few books on winemaking. I stuffed these things into a suitcase and pulled it out of the room. In the courtyard, that Alaskan Malamute named General was lying on the lawn, sunbathing. Seeing me come out, he lazily lifted his eyelids and then closed them again. Toward me, his nominal male master, he didn't even have the interest to wag his tail. I laughed mockingly at myself, pulling my suitcase as I prepared to leave. Just then, a fiery red Ferrari sports car roared into the courtyard, making a beautiful drift before stopping steadily right in front of me. The car door opened, and a sweet, cute-looking girl wearing a pink dress hopped down. Lin Siyue. She was Liu Ruyan's cousin, and the only person in this freezing villa from whom I could feel a sliver of warmth. "Brother-in-law, where are you going?" Seeing the suitcase in my hand, Lin Siyue's little face fell instantly as she rushed to me. "Xiao Yue," I smiled at her. "I divorced your cousin. I'm preparing to leave." "Divorced?" Lin Siyue's voice jumped an octave, her face filled with disbelief. "Why? Did my cousin... did she agree?" "It doesn't matter if she agreed. What matters is that I've decided." In my past life after I died, I overheard the nurses trying to resuscitate me chatting. It seemed only Lin Siyue had shed tears for my death. Therefore, I always held a bit more kindness toward her. "No, I won't let you leave." Lin Siyue grew anxious, spreading her arms to block me, posing a stance that said, "If you want to leave, step over my body." "Brother-in-law, did you fight with my cousin? She's just sharp-tongued but soft-hearted. Don't lower yourself to her level. I'll go scold her for you." I shook my head. "Xiao Yue, this is my own decision. It has nothing to do with her." "How could it have nothing to do with her?" Lin Siyue stomped her feet in anxiety. "Did my cousin bully you again? Tell me. I'll vent your anger for you." Seeing how worried she was for me, my heart warmed. "Silly girl, this is adult business. Children shouldn't interfere." I reached out and ruffled her hair. "Take good care of yourself from now on." After saying that, I stepped around her to keep walking. "Gu Yuan," a cold voice came from behind. I turned around and saw that Liu Ruyan had returned at some point, standing not far away, looking at us with a pale face. Behind her stood Assistant Chen, the secretary who had never given me a pleasant look. "Cousin." Seeing Liu Ruyan, Lin Siyue immediately acted as if she found her pillar of support, running over to grab her hand. Help me persuade brother-in-law. He wants to divorce you and he's running away from home. Liu Ruyan's gaze fell on the suitcase by my side, her eyes darkening. She took a deep breath and walked toward me, her high heels clicking on the gravel path. Every single step felt like it was treading on my heart. Are your things all packed? She came to a stop in front of me, her voice somewhat raspy. Yes. Must you leave? Must leave. My absolute resoluteness caused the light in her eyes to extinguish bit by bit. She remained silent for a moment, then suddenly said, Fine, you can leave, but take General with you. I froze. Not just me, even Lin Siue and Assistant Chen next to us were stunned. General was Liu Ruyan's beloved pet dog. She treasured him immensely, and usually didn't even let the servants touch him. Now, she actually wanted me to take him away? Liu Ruyan, what kind of trick are you playing now? I looked at her with wariness. I am not playing tricks. Liu Ruyan's expression was very earnest. General likes you very much. If you leave, he won't get used to it. Likes me? I almost laughed out loud. That dog barely even blinked when he saw me, and she called that liking me? Liu Ruyan, just to make me stay, you can even blurt out this kind of lie. Before I could finish, General, who had been lying on the lawn, suddenly stood up and ran toward me with joyful steps. Then under everyone's shocked gazes, he affectionately rubbed his massive dog head against my leg. Lin Siue and Assistant Chen's jaws practically dropped to the ground. Was this still that aloof general who ignored everyone? See? I didn't lie to you. The corner of Liu Ruyan's mouth curved into an imperceptible arc. I stared down at this large dog beside my feet, who had suddenly become as passionate as fire toward me, my mind in utter chaos. What on earth was going on with this world? In the end, I still didn't manage to leave. It wasn't because of Liu Ruyan, nor was it because of Lin Siue, but because of that dog named General. He bit down firmly on my suitcase, putting on a stance that said, You can leave, but you must leave the suitcase behind. I tried to reason with him, but he just barked twice at me to show he didn't understand. I tried to pull it away by force, but his bite strength was terrifying, and I was almost dragged into a stumble by him. Eventually, I was drenched in sweat from exhaustion, while that dog was still facing off against me, full of energy. Lin Siue stood to the side, giggling continuously, even pulling out her phone to snap several pictures, saying she wanted to post them on her social feed with the caption, Fierce Beast Wars, Live-in Son-in-Law, what is the true reason? I was so exasperated I felt like slamming my head into a piece of tofu to die. Liu Ruyan just stood to one side, watching quietly without saying a word. Her gaze was highly complex, containing helplessness, apology, and a hint of doting. I must be seeing things. Ultimately, I declared my surrender. Fine, I won't leave. Let go, I shouted at General. Amazingly, the moment my words landed, General instantly released his grip, wagged his tail, and trotted back to Liu Ruyan's feet, looking up as if claiming credit. Liu Ruyan crouched down, patted his head, and whispered something. Because I was far away, I couldn't hear clearly, but I saw that she smiled. That smile was very faint, yet like a ray of winter sunshine, it instantly illuminated her icy face. I stared, feeling a bit dazed. In our 3 years of marriage, I had never seen her smile so genuinely. I stared, feeling a bit dazed. In our 3 years of marriage, I had never seen her smile so genuinely. Brother-in-law, stop staring. Your eyeballs are about to fall out. Lin Siue leaned over, nudging me with her elbow and winking playfully. Isn't my cousin beautiful? I snapped back to reality, my old face turning red as I stubbornly argued, just average. Hypocrite. Lin Jiwei curled her lips, then lowered her voice to tell me, Brother-in-law, don't look at how cold my cousin usually is. Actually, she cares about you a lot. Cares about me? It felt like I had just heard some joke. What does she care about me for? Cares about whether I got scolded by the Liu family today, or cares about whether my allowance this month is enough? No, it's not like that. Lin Siue grew anxious. Did you know that the last time you had a cold and fever, it was my cousin who personally went into the kitchen to brew porridge for you? Also, that out-of-print set of winemaking books you love. My cousin pulled a lot of strings just to get them from abroad for you. She's just bad at expressing herself. I froze. Did that happen? Why didn't I have any memory of it at all? I only remembered that last time my fever hit 39 degrees, I called her, and she coldly said, "I'm in a meeting," before hanging up. As for those books, I always thought I had saved up every penny and scouted them from a second-hand book dealer. Could it be that I had misunderstood it all? No, impossible. The pain of my past life was so real. How could it be a misunderstanding? It must be that this little girl, Siyue, was bribed by Liu Ruyan to purposely say these things to trick me. Xiaowei, you don't need to speak up for her, I interrupted her. What stands between her and me cannot be settled by a few bowls of porridge or a couple of books. After saying that, I ignored her, dragged my empty suitcase, and went back to my small room. General wagged his tail. I shut the door, locking her outside. She whimpered twice at the door, looking like a pitiful, abandoned creature. I ignored her and lay on the bed, my mind in a complete mess. Liu Ruyan's tears, Lin Siyue's words, and General's abnormal behavior, all of this had caused a massive deviation from the memories of my past life. Could it be that the ones who were reborn weren't just the two of us? Had this world also undergone some changes that I didn't know about? Just as I was lost in my wild thoughts, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. After a brief hesitation, I answered it. "Hello? Gu Yuan? It's your dad." On the other end of the line came an old, weary voice. My entire body jolted, and I sat up straight on the bed. My dad? Didn't my dad pass away in a construction site accident back when I was in college? Who are you? My voice was trembling. You brat, you can't even recognize your own old man's voice anymore? The person on the other end laughed and scolded, yet there was an undetectable hint of tension in his tone. My brain buzzed, turning completely blank. This voice, this tone, it really was my dad. But how was that possible? Aren't you already... I choked up, unable to finish the sentence. Already dead? The other side let out a sigh. Sigh. It's a long story. Where are you right now? Is it convenient to meet up? Yes, it's convenient. I nodded frantically and gave the address of the Liu family villa. My dad was still alive. This news shocked me even more than my own rebirth. I hurriedly changed my clothes and rushed out of the villa before anyone could even notice. I waited anxiously at the entrance. About half an hour later, a black Audi A8 stopped in front of me. The car door opened and a white-haired but exceptionally hale and hearty elder wearing a black Mao suit stepped down. The moment I saw him, my tears could no longer be contained and burst out of my eyes. Dad! I rushed over and hugged him tightly. It was the same familiar scent, carrying a faint hint of tobacco. You brat, how old are you now and you're still crying? My dad patted my back, his eyes also welling up with tears. Dad, what on earth is going on? Didn't you... back then? The things back then are hard to explain in a few words. My dad pulled me along to sit on a stone bench by the roadside. I didn't actually die in an accident back then. I offended someone, and to keep you safe, I had no choice but to fake my death to escape. Offended someone? I was stunned. Yes, a very powerful adversary. My dad's gaze grew deep and profound. All these years I've been abroad. It wasn't until recently that I finally cleared up the matters over there. So you're fine now? I asked nervously. I'm fine, my dad smiled, his smile carrying a trace of the hardships he'd endured. It's all in the past. But as for you, I heard you married into the Liu family as a live-in husband. At the mention of this, my face instantly fell. Down. Dad, you don't need to say anything. I know everything. My dad patted my hand, his eyes filled with immense guilt. It's your dad who let you down, letting you suffer such grievances. I'm not aggrieved. I shook my head, my tears falling again. As long as my dad was still alive, nothing else mattered. Silly boy. My dad pulled a black bank card out of his pocket and stuffed it into my hand. There's some money in here, take it for now. Leave the Liu family. The son of me, Gu, cannot be someone else's live-in son-in-law. I looked at the black card in my hand, completely dumbfounded. Dad, where did you get so much money? I remember our family used to be very poor. Over these years, I did some small business abroad, my dad said lightheartedly. I didn't know what to say. Looking at the black card, I knew my dad's small business was definitely not small at all. Just as we were talking, a cold voice suddenly sounded from behind us. Gu Yuan! I turned my head around. Liu Ruyan was standing there at some point, looking at my dad and me with a complicated expression. Beside her, Lin Siyue was also staring with wide, curious eyes. I didn't ask any further questions. To me, money wasn't important. What mattered was that my dad was back. The two of us chatted for a long time until the sky began to darken, and only then did my dad stand up to take his leave. I'm temporarily staying at Yun City's Grand Hyatt Hotel. You can come find me any time, he instructed. Finish the divorce proceedings as soon as possible, and don't have any further involvements with the Liu family. Yeah, I nodded heavily. With my dad backing me up, my determination to leave the Liu family grew even firmer. After sending my dad off, I held that black card, my emotions unable to settle for a long time. It felt as though from this very moment, my life was going to completely turn around. I returned to the villa, preparing to have another talk with Liu Ruyan. This time I was filled with absolute confidence. However, just as I reached the entrance of the living room, I heard a fierce argument coming from inside. Liu Ruyan, are you crazy? For the sake of a piece of trash, you're actually going to cross the Lin family? It was the voice of Li Shuimei, Liu Ruyan's mother, my biting and sarcastic mother-in-law. Mom, he is not trash. Liu Ruyan's voice carried a hint of exhaustion and firmness. Furthermore, Lin Yuang and I are just friends. I have never thought about being with him. Friends? Do you take me for a 3-year-old child? The two of you grew up together since childhood, sweethearts. Who doesn't know he's in your heart? If the old master hadn't insisted back then that you bring in a live-in son-in-law to ward off bad luck, you would have married into the Lin family long ago. That is all in the past. I am Gu Yuan's wife now, and I just want to live a good life with him. Live a good life? With that piece of trash who doesn't even have a job and stays at home all day freeloading? Ruyan, wake up. He is not worthy of you. Only Yuang is worthy of a daughter of our Liu family. Enough! Liu Ruyan suddenly raised her voice, carrying a hint of hysteria. I won't allow you to talk about him like that. He is my husband. The living room instantly fell silent. Standing outside the door and listening to the dialogue inside, my heart was a whirlwind of complex emotions. In my past life, Li Shuimei had said the exact same words. Back then, Liu Ruyan merely listened coldly without refuting a single word. Yet now, for my sake, she was actually arguing with her own mother. What on earth was wrong with this woman? I didn't go in. Eavesdropping wasn't my hobby, but at this moment, driven by some inexplicable impulse, I wanted to know exactly what Liu Ruyan would do. The silence in the living room didn't last long, and Li Shuimei's sharp voice rang out again, filled with utter incredulity. Liu Ruyan, you actually yelled at me for an outsider? I am your mother! Mom, let me say it one more time. Gu Yuan is not an outsider. He is my husband. Liu Ruyan's voice regained its composure, but it carried an unyielding determination. I was wrong in the past. From today onward, I will treat him well. Therefore, I ask that you, Dad, and everyone else in this family show him some respect. Respect? Why should a piece of trash supported by our Liu family get respect? Li Shuimei sneered. Because he is my, Liu Ruyan's man. Liu Ruyan said those words with absolute certainty and resounding force. Standing outside the door, my heart violently skipped a beat. My, Liu Ruyan's man. Hearing those words come out of her mouth, why did it have such a massive impact? You're truly possessed by a ghost! Li Shuimei was so angry she was speechless. I don't care. You must divorce that piece of trash immediately and then prepare for your engagement with Yuang. I've already notified the Lin family over there. I am not getting a divorce. Liu Ruyan's tone remained, just as resolute. If you dare defy me for that piece of trash, I'll act as if I never had you as a daughter. The footsteps paused inside. My heart tightened, and I subconsciously held my breath. Given Liu Ruyan's usual filial piety toward her parents, would she compromise in the face of such a threat? A few seconds later, I heard her clear, cold, and unwavering voice. Suit yourself. After saying that, the footsteps sounded again, growing further and further away. In the living room, only Li Suimei's heavy panting and the crisp sound of porcelain being smashed to pieces remained. I silently turned around and returned to my small room, my heart feeling like a spilled spice rack, an indistinguishable mix of flavors. Touched? Perhaps a little. After all, this was the first time anyone had ever protected me like this. But more than that, it was doubt and vigilance. Can a person really undergo a 180-degree transformation just because they were reborn? The pain of my past life was still vivid in my mind. I didn't dare to believe her easily. Perhaps this was just a bitter trick she was staging in order to keep me around. After all, the me in this life was no longer that poor boy who had nothing. Even though she didn't know about my dad's situation yet, with her shrewdness, maybe she had already sensed something. I lay on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. My mind flashed back and forth between Liu Ruyan's tearful eyes and my dad's weathered face. Just as I was about to drift off, a faint, gentle knocking sound suddenly came from the door. Knock, knock, knock. Jolting awake, I sat right up. Coming! Who could it be? No one responded from outside the door. I frowned, thinking I had misheard. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking rang out again, lighter than before, as if afraid of waking others. I threw on some clothes, walked over to the door, and peeked through the peephole. Under the hallway light stood a familiar figure. It was Liu Ruyan. She had changed out of her sharp business suit into a silk nightgown. Her long hair cascaded casually over her shoulders, and her face was completely makeup-free, lacking a bit of her usual coldness and adding a touch of domestic softness. In her hands, she was carrying a tray with a steaming bowl of something on it. It was so late. What was she doing here? I hesitated over whether to open the door. Liu Ruyan seemed rather nervous outside. Clutching the tray, she kept rubbing her toes against the floor, glancing up at my door from time to time, her eyes filled with anticipation and anxiety. She looked just like a young girl in love, waiting for a response from her sweetheart. My heart stirred, and driven by an inexplicable impulse, I pulled the door open. Liu Ruyan clearly hadn't expected me to open the door so quickly. Startled, the tray in her hands wobbled, causing some of the hot broth in the bowl to spill out. The heat made her gasp. Hiss! Are you okay? I subconsciously grabbed her wrist. Her hand was very hot, and a patch on the back of her hand had turned red. I'm fine. Liu Ruyan shook her head, holding the tray out in front of me. Her eyes darted away, not daring to look at me. I brewed some hangover soup for you. Did you drink tonight? I froze. I hadn't drunk anything. Then it hit me. She was probably just using this as a lame excuse for her late-night visit. Looking at her cautious behavior, I suddenly found it somewhat amusing. Was this still the Ice Queen female CEO who was so decisive in the business world? Come in, I stepped aside, letting her into the room. This was the very first time she had ever set foot inside my room. Liu Ruyan walked into my small room looking rather awkward. She glanced around, taking in the small and meager room, a flash of complex emotion crossing her eyes. You live here? She asked softly, her voice carrying an undetectable tremble. Otherwise. I took the tray from her hands, set it on the table, and said flatly, Surely the eldest young lady of the Liu family didn't think that a live-in son-in-law like me could live in a guest room in the main building? My words carried thorns. Liu Ruyan's face turned a bit paler. She lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. I'm sorry. It was those 3 words again. Hearing them made me rather irritated. Liu Ruyan, if those 3 words are all you can say, then please leave. I pulled out a chair and sat down, picking up the bowl of so-called hangover soup. I took a sniff. It was seafood porridge with shrimp and scallops. It smelled delicious and was exactly the flavor I liked. Stunned by my sharp retort, Liu Ruyan stood there at a total loss for quite a while. Seeing her looking so pitiful, the nameless fire in my heart died down again. Sit, I pointed to the chair across from me. Acting as though she had received a grand pardon, she cautiously sat down opposite me, her hands placed on her knees. She sat perfectly straight, like an elementary school student waiting for a teacher's lecture. Ignoring her, I minded my own business and began eating the porridge. It was brewed beautifully with the cooking time adjusted perfectly. The grains of rice were soft and sticky, and the seafood tasted fresh and sweet. One spoonful after another, I finished it very quickly. I had to admit the taste was truly excellent. Seeing me finish it, Liu Ruyan's eyes lit up as if receiving immense encouragement. "Is it good?" she asked tentatively. "It's all right." I put down the bowl, wiped my mouth, and kept my tone flat. But only I knew that my heart was no longer as tranquil as it appeared on the surface. Lin Jue's words flashed in my mind. I looked at her and asked, "Can we have a talk?" "Talk about what? Talk about how your mother called me a piece of trash today? Or talk about your childhood sweetheart, Lin Yuang?" I leaned against the back of the chair, crossing my arms, putting on an interrogating stance. At the mention of Lin Yuang, the light in Liu Ruyan's eyes dimmed. "There's really nothing between him and me," she explained in a low voice. "In the past life, the reason I chose to stay close to him was because I thought you didn't like me. I wanted to make you jealous." "Make me jealous?" I almost laughed out loud. "President Liu, aren't you overestimating yourself a bit? Do you honestly think I would care?" My words were like a knife, stabbing savagely into her heart. Her face turned deathly pale instantly, and her lips trembled, unable to utter a single word. Looking at her hurt expression, I didn't feel a single shred of pleasure. Instead, I felt a bit reluctant to see her this way. "Damn it," I cursed at myself inwardly. "Guyen, since when did you become so soft-hearted?" "All right, it's very late. Go back." I stood up, issuing an order for her to leave. I was afraid that if I stayed with her any longer, the psychological defense line I had fought so hard to build would completely collapse. Liu Ruyan didn't move. She raised her head, looking at me with red rims, her voice carrying a trace of pleading. "Gu Yuan, don't drive me away, okay?" Saying that, she suddenly stood up, moved behind me, and tightly wrapped her arms around my waist. My entire body stiffened. Her face pressed against my back, her warm breath traveling through the thin nightgown onto my skin. I could clearly feel the softness of her body and her slight trembling. A familiar fragrance that made my heart race sneaked into my nose. It was that cold, woody scent unique to her. I felt my body instantly react. Damn it, this body is still too young and too honest. "Liu Ruyan, let go!" I tried to break free, my voice changing pitch slightly. "I won't!" She held on even tighter, burying her face into my back, and muttered in a muffled voice, "Gu Yuan, I know I was wrong before, horribly wrong. You can hit me, curse at me, treat me however you want, just don't abandon me." Her voice carried a sob. Her voice carried a heavy sob, and her warm tears soaked through my nightshirt against my back. My heart was in complete chaos. In the end, I still couldn't push her away. Or rather, in the deepest depths of my heart, I didn't want to push her away at all. I stood frozen on the spot, letting her hold me from behind, feeling the warmth and trembling of her body. Neither of us spoke. Only her suppressed whimpers and our mutual heartbeats remained in the room. After an unknown amount of time, her crying gradually subsided. "Gu Yuan," she spoke up in a muffled voice from behind me. "Do you still remember our first meeting?" I paused. Our first meeting? That was the day before we got our marriage certificate, inside the study of the Liu family's old mansion. At that time, she was wearing a white suit, looking like a proud queen as she told me coldly, "I don't care what your motive is, but since you are marrying me, you'd better behave yourself and not harbor any illusions you shouldn't have." Back then, having just lost my father and being completely destitute, I could only bow my head humbly in the face of her warning. I remember, I replied flatly with 2 words. Then do you remember what I told you back then? I said I liked quietness. I remember. Then do you know why I liked quietness? I frowned, not knowing what trick she was playing. Because... She paused, her voice dropping lower. Because I could hear your inner thoughts. What did you say? I suddenly spun, around, looking at her in utter disbelief. Startled by my reaction, she instinctively took a step back, but her hands still clutched mine, refusing to let go. I could hear your inner thoughts, she repeated once more, her gaze incredibly earnest. Right from the very first time we met, I could. My brain buzzed, completely dumbfounded. She could hear my inner thoughts? What kind of absurd setting was this? No wonder in my past life I always felt like she could see right through my mind. No wonder every time I secretly cursed her in my head, her face would turn even colder. No wonder every time I praised her beauty in my mind, her ears would inexplicably turn red. So, none of it was my imagination. So, in the past life, everything I thought about, I spoke with great difficulty. Yes, I knew all of it. Liu Ruyan nodded, a bitter smile appearing on her face. I knew that while you were respectful to me on the surface, you were cursing me in your mind for being a heartless block of ice. I also know you secretly gave me a nickname called Abbot Extinction. My old face flushed violently instantly. Oh no, this was a massive social death scene. I also knew... Liu Ruyan's face turned red too, her voice becoming smaller than a mosquito's. Every single night in your mind you would think about... She didn't continue, but her embarrassed and anxious expression already explained everything. I wished I could find a hole to crawl into. Oh my God, what kind of chaotic things was I thinking about in my past life? She heard all of it. My lifetime of dignity was completely ruined. So, I looked at her, suddenly realizing a much more serious problem. In the past life, you clearly knew what I was thinking. Why did you still treat me so coldly? You clearly knew I liked you. Toward the end, my voice dropped low. Yes, in the past life, I liked her. Although I cursed her with my mouth, in my heart, I truly liked her. I liked her beauty, her independence, and her serious demeanor when she worked. It was just that this affection was ground down to nothing, bit, by her coldness and pride. Hearing my question, Liu Ruyan's eyes turned red again. Because I was afraid. She lowered her head, her voice filled with regret. I was raised to be the successor since I was a child. My mother told me that. I was afraid. Afraid it wasn't real. Her explanation caused my heart to wrench fiercely. It turned out that beneath that icy outer shell was a heart so fragile and sensitive. Then what about Lin Yuang? I still asked the question I cared about the most. Emotions are a weakness, a burden. I didn't dare. I didn't dare to respond to your feelings. I was afraid I would stop being myself. Moreover, at that time, I thought your affection for me was only because of my status and my money. He and I are truly just friends, Liu Ruyan explained urgently. In the past life, the reason I chose to stay close to him was on one hand to make you jealous, and on the other hand, it was because I wanted to use him to help you. Help me? I was stunned. Yes, Liu Ruyan nodded. Back then, didn't you want to start your own winemaking workshop? But you had no startup capital and no connections. Lin Yuang's family runs a hotel chain. I thought that if he could help you, your winemaking formulas could quickly find a market. Therefore, I feigned interest in him, wanting him to invest in you. But I didn't expect you to misunderstand, let alone expect things to develop to that point. Toward the end, she choked up so hard she couldn't form words. Looking at her face covered in tears, a whirlwind of complex emotions surged in my heart. It turned out that the truth behind the very thing I had hated for an entire lifetime was actually like this. What I thought was betrayal was actually her clumsy way of protecting me. What I thought was coldness was actually her timidity and disguise. This silly woman. I reached out my hand, wanting to wipe away the tears on her face, but my hand froze in midair. Then why didn't you tell me any of this in the past life? I let out a long sigh, my tone still laced with a hint of sorrow. Liu Ruyan bit her lower lip, her voice trembling. Because back then, I thought that as long as I arranged everything for you, it would be enough. I didn't know. I didn't know you needed my respect and reassurance more than anything else. By the time I realized it, you had already completely given up on me. Did I let her go? I didn't answer her. Instead, I simply lowered my head and kissed her non-stop chattering lips. The exact moment our lips met, I clearly heard a joyful voice. So ecstatic it was about to explode, ring out inside my mind. Ah, he kissed me. He finally kissed me. I knew he still liked me. So happy I want to twirl around. It turned out that not only could she hear my inner thoughts, but I could also hear hers. This kiss was very green and clumsy. Liu Ruyan clearly had no experience, simply letting me have my way with her, while her body remained as stiff as a wooden board. Yet her inner thoughts were as chaotic and lively as a crowded market. Why hasn't he stuck his tongue out yet? Is he repulsed by me? His lips are so soft, so sweet. I want to take a bite. My heart is beating so fast, my legs are so weak, I can barely stand up. I was driven so wild by these bold and wild thoughts of hers that I almost surrendered right on the spot. By the time the kiss ended, both of us were panting for breath. Liu Ruyan's face was as red as a ripe apple, her eyes dazed and glistening with passion, leaving me with a dry throat. Now, do you believe me? I cupped her flushed cheek, asking in a raspy voice. She stared blankly at me, taking quite a while to react before nodding frantically like a little chick pecking at grain. I believe you, I believe you. I'll believe whatever you say, hubby. Hubby is the best. Hubby, this form of address. Hubby kissed me. He kissed me again. My health bar is completely empty. I need hubby to kiss me, hug me, and lift me high up in the air to recover. Did this woman's inner drama really have to be this extra? The contrast with her icy corporate CEO exterior was simply too massive. However, this feeling was actually pretty thrilling. I pulled her along to sit by the edge of the bed. She immediately clung to me like a koala, wrapping her arms around my neck and dangling her entire body on me. Gu Yuan, then, are you still going to divorce me? She tilted her small face up, asking me pitifully. Please don't divorce me. If you dare say yes, I'll cry right in front of you. No more divorce. I ruffled her hair, my tone filled with helplessness and indulgence. To be stuck with a troublemaker like you, I admit defeat. Yay, she cheered, planting a loud smack of a kiss on my face. This is amazing. Hubby is mine now. That little liar, Lin Xiuyue, better not dream of stealing him from me. To think she actually regarded Lin Xiuyue as a romantic rival. What on earth was going on in her head? Ahem, I cleared my throat, deciding to set some ground rules with her. It's fine not to divorce, but there are a few conditions. Name them! Not just a few, hundreds are fine. She immediately sat up straight, her face completely earnest. As long as we don't divorce, you can make me do anything. Even if it's... heh. I was left thoroughly speechless by the dirty thoughts inside her brain. I held up one finger. First, from now on at home, you are not allowed to call me Gu Yuan anymore. You have to call me hubby. This was something I had just learned from her inner thoughts. Liu Ruyan's face flushed bright red on the very first strike. Huh? Hubby? She stammered, unable to bring herself to say it for the longest time. Ah, this is so embarrassing, but I love it so much. Hubby, hubby, hubby. Watching her look bashful on the outside while being wild on the inside, I couldn't help but want to laugh. Can't bring yourself to say it? I deliberately forced a stern face. I can say it. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and let out a hum like a tiny mosquito. Phew. Bye. Her voice was soft, sticky, and carried a trace of coquettishness, melting me to the core. Good girl. Nodding with absolute satisfaction, I held up a second finger. Second, from now on I have the final say in household matters. Okay, she nodded without the slightest hesitation. Hubby has the final say. If hubby tells me to go east, I'll never go west. If hubby tells me to take off my pants, I'll never wear a skirt. Stop right there. If she kept going, I wouldn't be able to control myself anymore. Third, I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. Move over here and live with me. I pointed to this small bed that was only 1.5 meters wide. Liu Ruyan froze. She glanced at the bed, then glanced back at me, her small face instantly flushing red all the way to her neck. To here? Ah! I'm going to sleep in the same bed with hubby! So nervous! So exciting! Will he do some? This and that kind of things to me. I'm so looking forward to it. Seeing her contradictory state of being both afraid and expectant, the mischievous side of my heart surfaced again. I leaned in close to her ear, lowering my voice to a deeply magnetic tone. What's wrong? You don't want to? My breath brushed against her earlobe. Being sensitive, she shrunk her neck as her ears turned pink at a speed visible to the naked eye. No, it's not that I don't want to, she murmured as softly as a mosquito. I want to. A 10,000 times yes. Come on! Don't hold back just because I'm a delicate flower. I could no longer contain myself and burst out laughing with a loud pfft. This woman was truly a treasure. What are you laughing at? It tickles my brain. Nothing. I grabbed her hand and gave it a soft kiss at my lips. I just think my wife is really cute. Boom! Liu Ruyan felt as if a bomb had exploded inside her brain. Cute? He actually said I'm cute. Ah, he said I'm cute. He actually said I'm cute. I can't take it. I can't take it. I'm going to faint. I need hubby's mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Watching her look like she was about to faint from pure bliss, I shook my head, grabbed her hand, and pulled her up. Let's go. Back to your room to help you pack your things. Ah, right now? Liu Ruyan was stunned for a moment. Otherwise? Did you want me to wait until dawn? I winked at her. No, no, no. Let's go right now, immediately. Liu, as I watched her impatient, rushing figure from behind, the smile at the corner of my lips grew deeper. Perhaps starting this life over and living a good life with this ice queen wife who had way too much inner drama wasn't a bad choice after all. Late night main building of the Liu family, Liu Ruyan's bedroom. This was actually my first time entering her room. The entire room followed a cold color palette of black, white, and gray, within style that was minimalistic to the absolute extreme. Compared to my tiny servant's room, it was easily 10 times larger, yet it lacked even a shred of human warmth. This fit perfectly with the impression she had given me in my past life. Cold, empty, and keeping people thousands of miles away. I have quite a lot of stuff. How about we move it tomorrow instead? Liu Ruyan stood at the door, saying with some embarrassment. In her room, aside from the bed and the wardrobe, the most abundant items were various documents and books. Inside a massive walk-in closet, it was packed full with all kinds of business suits and formal dresses. You could barely find a single piece of brightly colored clothing. It's fine. I'll help you. I took off my jacket and started to get to work. Seeing this, Liu Ruyan also hurriedly came over to help. The two of us, one responsible for taking clothes out of the wardrobe, the other responsible for packing them into the suitcase, worked in a slightly subtle silence. Holding a pile of clothes, Liu Ruyan hesitated for a long time, but in the end, she couldn't hold back and spoke up. Hubby, your dad, he's back? The hand I was using to pack things paused. How did she know his dad is back? In that case, I absolutely cannot let him leave. What if his dad dislikes me because of how poorly I treated him before and makes him divorce me? No way. I must put on my best performance and make his dad like me. So she was worried about this. I found it rather funny inwardly, but I kept a straight face. Yeah, he's back. Then, What is Uncle like? Is he easy to get along with? She asked with absolute caution. What is he like? Cigarettes, alcohol, tea, antiques, calligraphy, and paintings? I'll go prepare them tomorrow. I must make my father-in-law happy. Looking at her acting as if she were facing a formidable enemy, I suddenly wanted to tease her. My dad, I deliberately dragged out my words, doesn't have a very good temper. He especially detests people who treat his son poorly. Liu Ruyan's face turned white instantly. It's over. It's completely over. I'm totally doomed. What I did to Gu Yuan in the past life was practically torment. If his dad finds out, he'll definitely skin me alive. Ah, what should I do? Hubby, save me. Watching her inner thoughts panic to the point of screaming for help, I couldn't hold back a chuckle. I patted her shoulder and said, Don't worry, as long as you treat me well from now on, I'll say some good words for you in front of him. Really? Her eyes lit up instantly, looking at me like she was looking at a savior. Of course it's real. When have I ever lied to you? I smiled, closing up the suitcase. All right, let's go. Time to head over to our room. I'm totally doomed. I treated him so badly in the past, his dad will definitely not like me. What should I do? What should I do? Should I go bear brambles on my back and beg for forgiveness right now? Seeing her looking so anxious that she was on the verge of tears, I finally couldn't hold it in and laughed. I'm just teasing you. I reached out and pinched her cheek. My dad is a very good person. You don't need to be nervous. Liu Ruyan stared at me blankly, taking quite a while to realize she had been played. She glared at me, huffing with flushed cheeks, looking incredibly cute. You're bad. She reached out and punched me lightly. I grabbed her hand, using the momentum to pull her into my arms. No matter how bad I am, I'm still your hubby. I lowered my head and pecked her lips, and she instantly lost all her temper. Obediently, leaning into my chest, the corners of her mouth curving upward uncontrollably. Hubby hugged me and he even kissed me. I love this so much. It would be even better if he were a little badder. Hehehe. Can this woman's brain think about something healthy for once? The two of us played and fooled around, taking over an hour to finally pack up her things. 2 massive suitcases were packed full with almost all of her daily necessities. Let's go, my lady wife, back to our own cozy nest. With 1 suitcase in each hand, I lifted the 2 heavy bags effortlessly and winked at her. Liu Ruyan followed behind me like a little tail. The 2 of us walked out of the main building one after the other in broad daylight, heading toward the servants' quarters. On the way, we ran into the family butler. The butler saw me carrying Liu Ruyan's suitcases, while Liu Ruyan followed behind me like a gentle little bird. His eyes practically popped out of his head. Eldest young lady, you are... I am moving in to live with Gu Yuan, Liu Ruyan announced flatly, yet her tone carried an undetectable hint of showing off. The butler's jaw dropped completely to the floor. Seeing the butler's expression, which looked like he had just seen a ghost, I felt incredibly satisfied. That's what you get for looking down on me in the past. Now your eldest young lady is mine. Returning to my small room, I arranged her things one by one. The originally meager room instantly became warm and cozy because of these feminine items. All right, all done. I clapped my hands, looking at the completely transformed room and nodding with absolute satisfaction. Liu Ruyan stood to the side, watching all of this, her eyes turning a bit red. Thank you, hubby. She walked over and hugged me from behind. Thank you for what? We are husband and wife, aren't we? I turned around and took her into my embrace. So happy. Is this what a home feels like? Hearing her satisfied inner thoughts, my heart softened completely. It's very late. Let's sleep. I patted her back. She let go of me, walked to the edge of the bed, pulled back the blanket, and climbed in. Then, she patted the empty space beside her, looking at me with a pair of bright, sparkling eyes. That gaze was filled with anticipation and invitation. I felt my throat instantly go dry. Tonight was bound to be a sleepless night. I took a deep breath, walked to the side of the bed, and lay down beside her. The moment I lay down, she tangled herself onto me like an octopus. Her legs naturally rested over mine, and her small hands restlessly wandered and touched all over my body. "Hubby, you have such a great body." She leaned close to my ear, her breath as fragrant as orchids. "Do you have an 8-pack?" Saying that, her hand slid under the hem of my nightshirt, rubbing back and forth against those firm abs. My entire body stiffened, feeling my blood instantly rush toward a certain unspeakable place. Wow, he really has them. They're so firm and they feel so good to touch. I want to lick them. This woman is playing with fire. I grabbed her misbehaving hand in one swift motion, flipped over, and pinned her beneath me, my voice incredibly raspy. "Liu Ruyan, do you have any idea what you are doing?" She was startled by my sudden movement, but immediately after, a breathtaking smile appeared on her face. She reached out both arms to wrap around my neck, actively leaning in to kiss my Adam's apple. "I know," she licked her lips, her eyes dazed and her voice enchanting. "I'm seducing you, hubby." The last string of reason in my brain snapped with a loud pop. Forget it. Having been reborn into this life, why bother acting like a perfect gentleman? Tonight, the spring breeze is just right and the scenery is beautiful. How could I let it go to waste? I lowered my head and kissed her passionately. Outside the window, the moonlight was at its peak, and our story had only just begun.